cool. All right. Welcome everybody to another episode of E4 Explicit Podcast. I'm Corey, and today we have Joe Dugan. If you want to introduce yourself and kind of tell everyone a little bit about what you do, that would be great.
Okay. Joe Dugan of Maryland State Police. I am part of the ICAC task force, which is Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force. That task force is just an affiliation of law enforcement from across the country and across the state, whether that be federal, state, or local levels. There's no individual group somewhere of ICAC police officers. They're just various officers from various jurisdictions.
Awesome. And what about your background? Like, were you in the police department? What's your law enforcement background?
Uh, I am currently retired after 37 years in law enforcement. I did 25 years in Baltimore City, where I worked as just uniform patrol, homicide detective, task force. I left there when I retired, went to the Harford County Sheriff's Office. The last 7 years there, I spent investigating child crimes, how I became involved in the ICAC task force.
Wow.
And I've been retired for about a year now.
Living the dream. Nice. That's amazing. So today I wanted to talk about, just so the viewers.
That's the first time you say you don't look that old.
Right. That's amazing. Well, I just wanted to prep the listeners and the watchers of kind of what we're going to talk about today. And we're going to really focus on the crimes against children. And just for some reason, it's been like a hot topic the last couple of years, and more the last year or so, where people are realizing it's a real thing. And we'll talk about maybe the reasons why people don't like to talk about it, or like to kind of even fathom that that is an actual thing and it's happening. But I think it's a very important topic, and having someone like you with so much experience in that field, I think is an important conversation to have. So that's going to be the main topic of today is, what goes around all of those things about child crime, how to prevent them, how to kind of look out for that kind of stuff. We'll talk about some experiences. So if anybody is kind of touchy on a subject like this, you don't have to listen or watch, but just a prerequisite of this is what we're going to be talking about. So just let me just get started of, what is kind of like your day to day when you're like in the trenches of this field, when you're looking for stuff? I know I talked to the person who put us in contact together, and he told me there's a reactive and there's an active, or like there's a certain types of how you go after these guys. So if you can give me a synopsis of kind of your day to day and what you guys are looking for and like what it entails, you know what I mean?
Okay. I think probably the terms you were looking for is reactive and proactive.
Yes.
First of all, we're reactive. It is the larger part of our day-to-day business. A lot of our investigative leads come through the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. We'll call that NCMEC because it's just not as much of a mouthful. They run what's called the cyber tip line. The cyber tip line is a line where you can call in and say, if you see something online that you don't think, hey, that's just not quite right, and it has to do with children, you can refer it to the cyber tip line. You can contact them by an 800 number or cybertip.com, I believe it is, or .org. You look it up, you'll find it. All electronic service providers such as Google, Yahoo, Facebook are required by law, when they see an incident of child exploitation on their service, to report that to the cyber tip line. The cyber tip line, they have a group of analysts there. They will look at the complaint, find the appropriate law enforcement agency to send it to, and ship it off. Here at the state police, they get all of the cyber tips and then divvy it out to the appropriate local law enforcement. I think the last year I have stats on 2018, it was like 2,600 of those for the state of Maryland, which is quite a bit. Now, we've seen an uptick in that, and I can't give you the exact numbers right now, mainly because our kids are home more often. They're not going out, not playing little league sports, things like that. They're spending a lot more time on the computers, so obviously we're getting more and more cyber tips.
Right.
Then there's the proactive side, where they've actually got a detective sitting on a computer, maybe posing as a 14-year-old boy or 14-year-old girl looking for those predators.
Wow. So would you like, okay, so that automatically I think of Chris Hansen, How to Catch a Predator, all that stuff. And I think personally, my personal opinion of that, I thought it was good because it shed light on it, but then it also kind of might have done some bad things to where like the people that you guys are looking for now have a spotlight on them, so they start to retract and go in under their shell. What is your kind of take on those missions?
I'm sure that there are a few guys out there that, hey, that scared them enough, and we want to scare them because I would rather them not be on there to where I can catch them, because they're so afraid they will get caught. Um, but you know, I haven't seen a slowdown of it. I mean, I'm sure I could go online right now, and within 15, 20 minutes, I would have some predator online at least sending me images. I mean, we look at two types of predators normally here. We have a predator that is just looking to share images and return, get images in return from children, or they may be looking to actually, meet with a child somewhere. Um, Again, there's a statistic out there that says that Dr. Joe Sullivan did it. The shoot, I can't think of the right words. The investigation of it. Where he interviewed a lot of people who were in jail for possession of child pornography. And 80% of those people he interviewed admitted to going hands-on, actually physically assaulting a child.
Whoa.
So again, if you're a child predator and you're into viewing child pornography, your ultimate goal, your ultimate fantasy is sex with a child. Same as an adult man who collects adult pornography. His ultimate goal and fantasy is sex with an adult female.
Right. That makes sense when you say it like that. Are you kind of seeing with COVID? I know you said there's been an uptick and stuff like that, and you don't have to give me stats, but have you seen since everything is shut down, people like you said are spending more time online. They're not going to sports. There's no school really in a lot of places. Are you seeing like an uptick in like the boldness of these predators and then the activity of children online?
Certainly the activity of children online because there's more children online.
Right.
The predators themselves are just bold. I mean, that's
Wow.
just how they can get across and get access to children. You have to be bold. And if you can imagine, when I was younger, certainly probably when you were younger, you would go to the playground to play,
Right.
right? And the predators would go to the playground because that's where they could find children.
Right.
So now that our children aren't going to playgrounds as often and they're spending more and more time online, whether it be gaming, social media, the predators are spending more time online into the social media, in the gaming networks, because that's where the children are. Now, I will say there's probably more of a boldness between children sharing images.
Hmm.
I don't know if it's a boldness or just the fact that they're online more. So we have seen a slight uptick in children sharing images. 15-year-old boy sending a picture of himself nude to his 15-year-old girlfriend, or vice versa.
Right.
Again, that is almost a plague we have, because how do we deal with that? We don't want to charge a 15-year-old boy with production of child pornography
Right.
because he sent a picture, of a nude image and stuff. Because it's inappropriate, but if they're both standing in the same room, totally naked, they're not breaking any laws.
Right.
But at the moment that boy takes that picture, sends it to his girlfriend, he's now produced and distributed child pornography, which is a felony. And we're certainly not wanting to charge children for that. Back when these laws were created was before cell phones and computers and everything. These laws were created to protect children, right? And now, our laws just haven't caught up with the technology. There's some stuff going on in Annapolis right now to try and maybe reduce that, for children from a felony down to a misdemeanor, or maybe even some type of, diversion program for a first-time offender.
Right.
But I mean, our children truly are creating a lot of content.
Right. Yeah. No, that's kind of like you're trying to protect the kids from themselves at that point, even though they kind of probably don't,
Yes.
they don't even think of it as, oh, I'm producing child pornography. I'm just sending a whatever pic to my girlfriend or whatever. They don't think it's that big of a deal.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and just to throw it out as a fun stat, as adults, 50% of adults are sending images over the line,
Right.
nude images, nothing illegal about it. But 30% of them are sending to people they don't even know.
Right.
So if we're making bad choices like that,
Right.
how much more are children going to make,
Right. Right.
choices?
And also that makes me think like if the children don't look at it as like I'm actually technically producing child pornography, they might not look at it as such a bad thing or not know it's a serious thing when they receive or send to someone who's not their 15-year-old girlfriend, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. And lots of times, I mean, by the time that, our children are sending images to, the adult men, I'll use men, 99% of all predators are men. So I'm going to, use that
Right.
term mostly for predators.
Hmm.
So by the time that this 14-year-old girl, 14-year-old boy has decided to send an image to this predator, he's always already done such a great job of grooming them. They feel absolutely comfortable with it. You know, we certainly do see children that have sent an image, and as soon as they sent it, they wish they hadn't because they're just so uncomfortable with it. But they've already started down the rabbit hole right now. And if they don't send the next image, that predator is going to threaten to, release that image, to all their friends. So now they send the next image, then the next image, and you can just see how it just spirals down.
Right. Right. So
And that's where the children really see, hey, I made a mistake.
yeah, that's when they realize like that's most of them hopefully come to the conclusion that it's a mistake. Now, you mentioned grooming. That's something that I think a lot of people in the general public may or may not know or understand. And what ranges with the grooming? Like what can it could be very small, it could be very like bold and in your face, but how is that process happen?
Well, again, having posed as a child online, I have experienced grooming firsthand. So
Right.
the biggest tool a groomer has, in my opinion, is flattery. Everybody loves to be flattered. So you have a young lady, she's, we'll pick on TikTok a little bit. She's posting, little dance videos, singing videos to TikTok. Well, the predator sees that, automatically going to be telling you how, she has a voice like an angel. She dances better than anybody that he's ever seen. She could certainly be professional. Well, kids reading this up. I mean, adults eat flattery up.
Right.
So how much more is a child going to eat that up? Um, then once they get that conversation initiated, it could go something like, these are just typical questions I was always asked. What's your favorite food? I would always say Hawaiian pizza because everybody, hates Hawaiian pizza. I like it, but everybody else doesn't. And inevitably, that predator, Hawaiian pizza is his favorite pizza.
Right.
They'll ask you, what's your favorite pastime? I would always say, I love horseback riding. Well, without a doubt, that predator is going to have access to horses, or his father owns a horse farm. I live on a horse farm. I work on a horse
Right.
farm. Um, what's your favorite music? I always say country music because most people don't like country music. Well,
Mhm.
without a doubt, that predator loves country music.
Wow.
So, and I explain to the kids when I go into schools, you need somebody online that you've never met before. And it turns out that they're your soulmate because everything you they like, everything you want to do, they want to do, and they just have the right answer for every situation. Just 100% of the time, that's a predator.
Right. Wow. I would never even think it's actually quite simple when you break it down like that to kind of notice these things when people are just agreeing with everything that you're throwing out there, especially random things that, like you said, most people might not like or might not even have the same experiences with, but they're completely agreeing with you is kind of it's scary to me that it's that simple to kind of groom someone, which is oh
Yeah, it just boils down to flattery. I heard one person explain it. A predator is just going to repeat back to your child whatever they say. I just went to see the new, Avengers movie. Oh, I just went to see the new Avengers movie. without a doubt, they're just going to have such a a relationship,
Right.
with that child. I explain to parents too. If your child calls you in the middle of the day and says, "Hey, mom, I'm having a problem. Hey, can we talk?" And you tell your child, "Hey, we'll talk when I get home. I'm working." If your child calls that predator, "Hey, I'm having a problem. I need to talk to somebody," it doesn't matter what that predator is doing. He's going to put down whatever he's doing, and he's going to talk to your child.
Wow.
So, I mean, I always tell the parents, don't let a predator replace you as a parent, because
Right.
that's what they want to do.
Right. Do do you see like I always wondered like the ratio of basically men predator looking for children, or is it men looking for boys? Like what's like the ratio? Because I see a mix of it, but I have a feeling that it's men looking for boys more than more men looking for girls.
Um, I have not noticed that.
Okay.
Again, I had a lot of profiles was, that I put out as a 13, 14-year-old boy. Now, I don't know if that community is just much more cautious. I certainly talked to a lot of men online, um, but never got the response as when I was portraying a 13, 14-year-old girl talking to men online. Again, that is my personal experience. Now, I do know, with having to work at a child advocacy center, out of Harford County Sheriff's Office, that the incidences with boys, sexual crimes against boys, that we always figure that number is a little bit skewed
Right.
because, a boy could be sexually abused and just not want to come forward.
Right.
Where a girl, we persuade girls to, hey, if something ever happens, make sure you tell us. Lots of times with boys, I think they get the message, hey, if it happens, it's an assault on your manhood. Just keep it to yourself.
Right.
Again, I don't know that that's true, but that's just the feeling we got, that the statistics for boys was just not always quite right.
That makes sense though.
Yeah.
The uh what was I gonna say? The when I think of the child abuse and stuff that you're talking about that I've seen on TV and televised and stuff, I always picture like an older man, in his, 40s to 60s, kind of like going after like a 13 or 14-year-old girl boy. But it's way, way different, right?
Yeah, it's way different. The average age for a predator, again, 99% of them are male.
Mhm.
The average age is about 26 and up. In my experience, it's been just a little bit younger. Um, Mostly white males, I believe you'll find. Um, but they're not the stereotypical creepy old guy. I mean, certainly those guys are out there. I actually want to go into the schools. I have a slide that I show the kids. It'll have a young white male, a young white lady, a creepy old guy with glasses, and then uh, a young African American male. I ask them to pick out the predator. They always pick out the creepy old guy with glasses.
Right.
When in fact, number one, the young white male is probably the most likely. Certainly, we do see women predators. I've seen cases where a lady actually traveled from Florida to meet a young man that she'd met in a gaming system, a 13-year-old. So we do have female predators. They're just not as prevalent.
Right. Now, are you like, because I think like, so what, like, what's like the age for like the child, right? Do they have to be old enough to be in a gaming system or be online or whatever? Because I mean, I know it happens to like, I mean, like very young. So what's that kind of look like?
Generally when we talk about predators, we call them pedophiles.
Right.
Well, pedophilia is a predisposition for children, prepubescent children, basically children under 10. So we really don't see the true, the diagnosed pedophile online, because mostly our kids under 10 are not online. Sometimes they are, but those guys have to look for it somewhere else. So the predators we see online are generally looking for the teens and tweens, 10-year-old and up. Again, I have investigated cases as young as 6 and 8. There's an app out there. It's called, can't even think the name of the app now, but you talk to strangers. And that's the whole app is just talking to strangers.
All right.
And these children had found the app, were talking on it, and predator strolled across them, and next thing you know, he's got them dancing on a bed naked.
Wow.
So they're out there. It's I don't mean to make the internet out to be a terrible place. The internet's a fantastic place. There's a lot of fun stuff to do,
Right.
a lot of educational stuff to do, but there's that small little corner that where these predators and the bad guys hang out, that we have to be aware of. And not even just that, just the damage we can do to ourselves by sharing too much information. I think the statistic is 1 in 5 of our children will be approached by someone online that they don't know. It doesn't mean that 1 in 5 people is a predator,
Right.
but certainly that ups that chances of them running into a predator. And like I think it's 30% of the kids respond to that person they don't know.
Wow. So how do we not have that 30%, right? How do we have like the awareness? I know it's like hard to go into a school with 10-year-olds or 13-year-olds and let them know that this is a possibility when most adults can't even fathom this happening.
Well, that's, when I first started this about a year ago, I always said the adults were my target audience because, I get your child for an hour and a half, you get them for the rest of their lives.
Mm-hmm.
So if I can get you on board, you can keep the children safe. And that's certainly a big part of it. But I have noticed since I've started going into the elementary schools more and more, they are so receptive to the message. Again, it is a sanitized version of the message for them, but they want to learn. They want to get that first device if they don't have it yet. So they want to know how to be safe. And if I can get into them, these entry level, we'll call them, and teach them, hey, don't talk to a stranger. I mean, we used to always teach stranger danger to kids, stranger danger, stranger. And we have learned that, hey, as far as physical abuse, it's not the stranger that's going to hurt you. It's somebody familiar to you.
Right. Family member
Right.
or something.
On the internet, it is just the opposite. It is the stranger danger. So we need to spread that message to the kids. And, I was just surprised how receptive, the 4th, 5th, and 6th graders were to this message.
Wow. That's amazing. Well, I was curious, are you like for child abductions and stuff like that and kind of like human trafficking, does that kind of fall into what you do at all?
Not necessarily what I do, but I'm actually sitting in one of their offices right now. The human trafficking part of it, they're sort of meshed together. I mean, a lot of human trafficking happens over the internet. Some of the victims are found over the internet. So there is a relationship, but it's not part of what I did as an ICAC or what I do as part of my presentations. I certainly touch on it a little bit, but I'm not necessarily the expert on it.
Right. No, that's, I was just curious because like, I feel like a lot of people might get some of that stuff kind of confused when it is meshed together at a certain point, but they are, separate entities and stuff like that. What's the, like, these kids next door are like fucking growing crazy right now. So what's the, like, as far as like not budgets and stuff like that, but what's the reach that you guys have with the ICAC and all that stuff? You know what I mean? Because I feel like you're just in Maryland, but do you have like, authority across the United States? Because it's the internet. So, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Several of our ICAC detectives are cross-deputized as federal agents.
Oh, nice.
So they have the authority to go cross-country investigations and charge into the federal courts. That's the main reason they are deputized is so they can take the cases into the federal courts. Because as a local officer, I was never allowed to take a case to federal court. I would have to find a federal agent, get them to adopt my case, and then take it to the federal system.
Wow.
Again, me as an ICAC detective here in Maryland, if I had a case, and I certainly did, I had a case that reached to North Dakota. Well, I worked with the ICAC detective that was in North Dakota, and we, exchanged information back and forth. The guys out there went to jail, the guys here went to jail, and everybody except them was happy.
Wow. That's cool. That's good that it's kind of like nationwide and you guys are able to work together like that, though.
And that is the purpose of the ICAC task force. I even had contacts around the globe. I had cases that came in from the United Kingdom. We had one case that we had to call New Zealand on. It just so
Dang.
happens that a friend that I worked with had just moved to New Zealand to work with their version of ICAC. So it was just a matter of calling her up and, hey, Felicia, can you look into this?
Right.
Next day, they were in 16-year-old's house and seizing his computer equipment.
Whoa. That's crazy. That's good that it happens. Like the internet is can be bad, but it can be good for you guys too, because you're using those tools against them, really. If that, you know what I mean? That's pretty interesting,
Exactly what it is.
right? Like when you're disguised yourself as a, because I see like I said, on TV is really the only kind of experience I've had when I'm watching like Chris Hansen and like those teams talking to people and stuff like that. Is that like really how it goes? Or like how long? Because you said in 15, 20 minutes, you can have someone sending you pictures. How long does it take for you from initially talking to someone to having them either setting them up? Because I know there's a tightrope that you got to walk with like entrapment and stuff like that, right?
Yes. And I can't get into those investigative details, but I can tell you I've had cases that I talked to the guy for a year or so before he made the initial suggestion that we meet. But again, the reason I was talking to him wasn't, to try to catch him as a predator. He was already on the sex offender registry in Maryland, and he kept disappearing from the registry. He kept absconding. So my only contact with him was to help our Megan's Law unit, who was the people responsible for the registrations, to try to locate where he is. He was moving back and forth across the border between, Harford County and the next county over. And then one day, just out of the blue, he started talking about, hey, we need to get together and so on and so forth. And now he's back in jail. The shortest one I had was probably within about 2 hours. And he actually met me on the back parking lot of the police station. Yeah,
What?
he wasn't the brightest of the ones that we dealt with, but yeah, just met him online, just a cold call type of thing. And within 2 hours, I had him on the back station, a back parking lot of the police station.
Oh my God.
So
That's the wow. That's not a bright one. Well, that kind of leads me to my next question is the oh man, damn, this happens to me all the time, Joe. Like it just like
same thing here, but I'm old.
yeah. I mean, I'm not. I don't know what's old to you. I'm 32, so I feel like
My oldest son's going to be 40 this year, so
oh my God,
I'm 61.
you look like you're like 40, just so you know. So
Thank you.
that's amazing. No, I had a good question, and it was about I'll think about it in a second. It's come and goes, but I was actually thinking as far as prevention and stuff like that. I mean, has the way that these predators found kids and like realized where kids are, stuff like that, got me thinking. Well, not me, my girlfriend actually brought up a good point. She said, like, when you see like on the back of vans where it's like a family, pictures of like little, mom and dad and all their kids with their kids' names underneath of it. My kid goes as an honor student at, FSK high school or Hartford, whatever high school. Do you think those are things where like predators are like, I know how many kids they have. I know where their kids go to school. All I got to do is go camp out that school, follow that van, know where they live, and then start the process. Is that even a thing? Or
I'm not going to say no, but why would you put that much effort into something when all you have to do is turn on the computer?
right.
Yeah, it's just so you never have to leave your mother's basement.
Is that where you find a lot of these people who are just like living?
Oh, no. I mean, we certainly have found that situation where you go knock on the door, hey, can I speak to Jimmy? Oh, he's in the basement, and he shows up in his bathrobe and,
Oh my
certainly had
God.
this situation, but yeah, that's not the stereotypical predator.
Right, right,
I don't think there is a stereotypical predator.
right. Oh, I got it. My question. So I've seen a lot lately where people are trying to, and I don't know what communities are doing this, but I've seen it on in writings and online where they're trying to relate pedophilia, like the mindset of a pedophile, to someone as like a transgender person, someone that's transitioning from male to female or vice versa. Um, and they're trying to basically justify that oh, this person, it's like it's a sickness, or it's like some sort of kind of like mental issue or mental disorder where like they are just attracted to children, when in fact I personally think it's because they are sick in a way. But like, have you heard about that or seen that at all?
I have, and I'm probably not the right person to ask this question. I'm trying to temper my answer as much as possible.
Right.
Um, it certainly is I'm going to say a mental disorder. That may not be the correct term, but that's what I'm going to call it for now.
Right.
Um, Again, me having seen the damage that pedophilia or any type of a sexual assault on a child does to that child. Um, yeah, it's not the same thing. It's to me, it's not a sexual orientation. It is, to me, it's no more of a sexual orientation is to say, hey, I rob banks because that's who I am.
Right.
It's just not. And like I say, the are you familiar with the ACEs study,
No.
advanced childhood, advanced childhood? Oh golly, now I'm embarrassed myself. Can't remember what ACEs.
I'm rubbing off on you, Joe.
Yeah, it, um, it has to do with trauma during early childhood and the way it affects, as you get older. The ACEs study shows that children who have early onset trauma, and we'll use sexual trauma as the example. If that trauma is not addressed, um, it leads most likely to alcoholism, self abuse, uh, drug abuse, things like that. If it's untreated, so those are the sort of things that we would see in the child advocacy center. Because I didn't just do the ICAC investigations. I did the sexual assaults, the physical abuses, and those types of investigations.
Right.
So pedophilia is not. Could it be a sexual orientation? I don't know. That's for greater minds to decide. But to say that it's okay for a 30-year-old man to assault a 6-year-old child, no, I'll never agree with that.
Right, right, same. Yeah, that's like I see like a lot of like I'll see like a picture of like it's a man's body, but you can see through him, and it's like a kid. He's like, oh, he's a kid inside. Like that's really how he is. And I'm like, yeah, well, like to your point with that study, like I saw that a lot with like serial killers because like I'm obsessed with like weird stuff like that. So like they found like most people, pretty much every serial killer that is famous, the Ted Bundys, John Wick, all those guys, all all had either child sexual abuse or a terrible relationship with their mother or some physical abuse, something that triggered them later on in life. Charles Manson, all these people had major issues as a child. But and I think you might see like a repetition of like as a kid, if a guy got abused when they're 30, they might do the same thing to their children or other children, right?
Um, I've read studies on that both way that, hey, if
Right.
you're an abuser, you will become an abuser. But I don't think that's absolute.
Right.
And again, I'm talking totally out of my
Yeah. Yeah. No. No.
area of expertise, but to me, it's used more of an excuse.
Right.
I was abused as a child, so I'm going to abuse my children.
Right.
I was sexually assaulted as a child, so I'm going to go sexually assault. I have talked to a lot of people that were sexually assaulted as a child that do not assault children.
Right.
Again, I don't see the connection. Certainly, it comes up, but I think to me, it came up more as an excuse.
Right.
Well, this is the reason I did it because I was assaulted as a child.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's kind of what I portray it to be. And I feel like if it gets to the point where it becomes like either a law or a right or something, then it's like, well, shit, everything that you're doing, everything that everyone else is doing to try to prevent this stuff is just going to go out the window, because if all they have to say is, oh, well, that's my orientation or that's how I feel inside, Oh, okay. Well, what about the
Yeah,
family? What about the
yeah,
children?
it still doesn't make it right.
Right. Exactly. Um, I've seen kind of like, and this is kind of like, I know it's not really it is child exploitation. It is actually, but like, how come when we have all of this evidence and all of these things, just for example, like I talk about him all the time, but Epstein, right? So that is not like, not so much a human trafficking thing. I think that's more of like, I mean, I'm sure there was extensive trafficking involved, but like that's him preying on young people, grooming children, stuff like that. How come when we have evidence of people that are, elitist or have connections and stuff, why is it like nothing ever really kind of gets done until it's like almost too late?
Again, that's going out of
I
my
know. I'm
area
sorry.
of expertise, I'd love to have that conversation with you, but I will say, bringing it down to earth, with local cases where we see, we know a child has been abused. We know without a doubt this person has committed that abuse, and it still doesn't go to trial. The main reason is we don't want to do more harm to that child by taking them in a court situation. Again, why traumatize them again? There's no statute of limitations. So if we have say, an 8-year-old child that was abused, you know, let's wait till they're 12, 14 years old and see, can we charge them then?
Really?
Um, yeah, there's
Wow.
at the child advocacy centers, the one I worked at in Harford County, we have a child first policy. We're not going to do anything to further traumatize that child. So there's a huge discussion. We sat down with the family, we sat down with everybody, and we make a decision to, is this in the best interest of this child right now? Now we can certainly, keep the abuser away from the child,
Okay.
right? But what is in the best interest of that child?
Wow.
You know, maybe to place that child on a stand and have them confront their abuser may not be the best answer at that time. Get a little bit of therapy, and then they might be able to confront the abuser.
Right. And then so how does that, like, does the abuser, obviously, do you arrest that person, or do they just like, you guys keep them away from them? Like, how, do you guys just
Uh,
have a mutual agreement?
just a mutual agreement. They will be monitored. Certainly, if there is anything we can charge them with that we don't need the child to
Right.
testify to. I mean, most of those cases involve a search warrant at the house, searching through computers, so certainly if we find images on the computer, we're going to charge him with that possession, so he's going to go to jail for a little bit for that.
Right.
So, I mean, there's just a lot goes into it. I can't give
Of
one
course.
set answer, because every case is totally different, but every case puts the child first.
Right. It's situational.
Yeah.
Nice. Um, have you seen, like, do you guys do anything on like the dark web and stuff like that?
Again, not my area of expertise.
Okay.
There's a few detectives that do work that. Uh,
Wow.
I know that, I mean, there's a lot of argument what the statistics are, but, the dark web, about 2% of it involves child pornography and some of the worst child pornography you'd ever want to see,
Right.
which includes like even killing children.
What?
But it accounts for 80% of the traffic on the dark web. So, I mean, a lot of these guys are really, I mean, and there's a lot of arguments over that statistic, but
Right.
I like to use it because it is, it gets a look on people's face just
Yeah.
like yours.
Well, that's
Um,
insane, man.
and again, you or I can't just go on to the dark web and start looking at this stuff. You have to know people, have to be invited into the rooms. Again, and there's so much, um, viral stuff on there. The hacker group Anonymous works out of the dark web. Um, again, so I always tell kids, tell parents, if you see the onion router, the Tor network on, your child's device and stuff, get it off there because it's just going to burn the phone up. So,
Right. Right.
every 13-year-old boy considers himself a hacker, and the first thing he wants to do is download the onion router. So,
Right. Yeah. Well, what would you tell, like, what do you tell parents to kind of like what stuff to look out for? Because I feel like I can only imagine that nowadays, I mean, you have Facebook, you have Google, you have TikTok, you have Snapchat, you have, Twitter, you have the normal websites, you have all of these places where you guys have to monitor and make sure, like, things are going as they should. How do you tell a parent that has to deal with all these other real life things in real life? How do they handle all that stuff? How do you train them or teach them to kind of look out for stuff?
The biggest thing I tell all parents is be involved with your children. Not just on the internet, but in life in general. Let them know that you are the person they can come to if they have a problem.
Right.
Excuse me. Um, yeah, play games with them. Play the online games with them.
Right.
Have your daughter share. Hey, what's this TikTok all about? She'll show you some hilarious videos.
Yeah.
Be a part. Be interested in what they're doing, and even while you're talking to them, give them some words of wisdom. Well, okay, I've heard that this is guys like to prey on children on this side. Have you had any problem with that? They might tell you, yeah, I've had some guys come on in. I just kick them to the curb. Again, your child's doing okay then.
Right.
Even say, hey, I went and heard this crazy old guy talk about the dangers on the internet. Hey, have you guys seen anything like this?
Right. Right. So, are you finding it that like with the technology and stuff like that, that these predators are getting, aside from the guy that just showed up at the police station, getting more like sophisticated and kind of just smarter in their ways with detection of you guys and stuff like that?
I would have to say, I'm sure there's a section of that. I mean, we've run into some really tech savvy guys, and again, I can't give you details of that about how they hide their stuff. But generally, it's just a guy like you or me. They've got this issue, this problem, and they get caught. I mean, it's
right.
Whether you're sending an image over your email or sending it through Facebook Messenger, stuff like that, or you sent it to somebody you didn't mean to send it to, and you get reported.
Right.
I mean, a lot of the guys that again, especially from a lot of the guys, they were expecting us to show up. You go to the door and say, yep, I knew you're going to be here.
Oh, okay.
One guy even told me the day after I showed up that, we we knew you were coming. We took our laptops out and drilled holes in the hard drive and threw them in the dumpster.
Whoa.
So
they knew that they were caught.
Well, of course, the devices had viruses on them. There's a reason they did that, but they just knew we were coming. So
right. I know the guy who put us in contact, and like I don't know, like secretively if I could talk about him, but the guy that put us in contact, he mentioned to me, like, which blew my mind, was the capabilities and stuff that you guys are able to do. You know what I mean? Like how you can kind of like basically see what they're doing like in real time sometimes. I don't know. You don't have to talk about that kind of stuff, but like it kind of blew me away. The stuff that you guys can do. And
there's a lot of stuff that the guys here do. I mean, especially the tech guys that will just blow your mind.
Right.
Again, when I was working it, I was very low tech. So, and again, because it's teaching the old dog new tricks.
Right.
Come from an era where you just didn't have computers. I remember the first time I was allowed to go on a computer to look up just somebody's MBA record.
Right.
And I thought, man, this is great, and I'm somebody important now.
Right.
And now just the amount of information you can get online is incredible.
Yeah, no, it's scary. So what exactly do you do at the department, stuff like that, as far as like, like we talked about your day to day a little bit, but like, if you're not, are you actually catching these people physically?
Me, no, not anymore.
Right.
I'm retired. I'm a civilian employee. So, I don't get to do that anymore. And again, 37 years of it, I'm done being a police.
Yeah.
My entire job now is just going into the community and doing the outreach, doing the education. Elementary schools, middle schools, high schools, churches, any place somebody will let me talk, I go in and give the message.
Right.
I do an hour and a half presentation or whatever time they decide to, let me have. I went to a school in Southern Maryland. They kept me there for 3 hours asking questions.
Wow.
So, and then, it was a private school. the only reason they only kept me 3 hours because I had to go talk to their kids right after them. And even the kids were just so involved and just, asking great questions. Well, what do I do with this? What do I do with this? So
Do you ever have
again,
like,
I think it's a great program, not just because I'm doing it.
right?
Um,
Do you have like, I know when I talked to the, like, once again, the guy that put us in contact, he said the amount, like year after year, of how many predators are coming out and getting caught, and it, like you said earlier, you haven't really seen it slow down. Um, if you had like a magic wand, right? If Joe Dugan had a magic wand and then just could fix every problem, how would that look? Because if it's escalating and you guys are seeing more and more and more and more people every year, and you guys are doing such a good job of putting people away, how is that even happening? If you know what I mean, like how is it just getting more and more bigger, I guess?
oh golly. I mean, I've always thought the key to solving any problem is education. If you compare this to the heroin epidemic, we're not going to arrest our way out of the heroin epidemic,
Right.
but as a way to sort of at least think we're controlling the situation. Same thing here. I mean, we have a real situation here. We are saving children. We would love to save a lot more of them. Um, Again, if I go online, I talk to a predator, he comes out to meet me. Well, he's come out to meet a police officer as opposed to coming out to meet a child. So I don't know what child I saved, but I did save one.
Right.
So again, every business, every job, certainly every police department will tell you what we need is more people, more money.
Right.
So again, if I had a magic wand, that would be it: more people, more money.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. That's why, like, when I talk to my buddy that owns the martial arts school, um, we always talk about, like, the defund the police and this and that. And I think when people get in those headline topics, they don't even think about, if they defund the police, then there goes the money to do this kind of stuff. You know what I mean? So that's kind of like another reason why I wanted to talk to you too, is because I think right now in the time that we're in, those kind of headline quotes and sentences really don't do justice to children, to the community and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So that's why I thought this was so important. So there would go all of your funding to do all of these great things.
Well, I mean, a lot of the funding for the ICACs, comes from the federal government and from, local grants and stuff.
Right.
So it's not necessarily coming out of the general budget, say for a
Right.
local police department.
Okay.
You have a police department that only has a dozen officers, but if they're a member of the ICAC task force, they have access to all of these different grants.
Right.
So if they need to buy a computer for their ICAC detective, it doesn't come out of their budget. It comes out of this grant.
Oh,
If they
wow.
need to buy some forensic software, it can come out of the grant. So again, defunding the police department wouldn't necessarily affect the grants.
Okay. Well, that's good to know.
So, I mean, at least I hope it wouldn't,
Right.
because
Right.
that's how I'm paid.
Yeah. Well, hopefully not. I mean, um, I just, what's the main reason why you think, though, that whether it's adults or just people in general, because as big as this, I mean, the heroin epidemic is an epidemic, but from the people that I've talked to in your circles, this is a much larger epidemic, but gets basically no airtime, which is so shocking to me. Aside from like things like this, where we can have one-on-ones, but I never turn on the news, and it's, well, as of late, I actually have seen, like, oh, in Ohio there was a giant bust of like human trafficking. These officers found like 50 kids or whatever in a basement. So like that, it's happening as of late, but it's not like a big deal for some reason. Why is that?
Um, Again, people love to hear that 20 people were arrested for human trafficking.
Right.
They don't want to hear what's happening to those children.
Right.
So they love the idea that somebody's doing something about it. But again, this segment's going to get a little explicit. If I go to give you a description of a an online video of a 6-year-old
Mm-hmm.
being abused and raped, tied upside down and abused and raped. You don't want to hear that. You
Right.
just shut it out. Again, um, so that's the reason this sort of stuff doesn't get much airplay. They're glad to hear that they're getting arrested, but just don't tell me about it.
Right. Out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah, out of sight, out of mind. Um, and again, to protect the children, it doesn't get a lot of news play. A lot of the cases that came through the Child Advocacy Center when I worked there never made the news because we have a child victim that we have to protect.
Right.
Even if I do arrest this guy for this heinous crime, I can't really expose it because
Right.
I'm putting a child in harm's way when I do it.
Right.
So a lot of times it's going on behind the scenes, but you don't see it because of that. Other times people just don't want to hear about it.
Right. Damn, that's super difficult because I guess I didn't even think about the fact that, the child first, thing really kind of plays a part in like allowing this to be a general public issue and letting a lot more people know, which I never thought about. But then at the same time, you have the other side of the coin where people just don't want to know about it. So I can imagine it being a very slippery slope, you know,
It is.
with awareness. So I mean, so when you're going to these schools, that is that the time where you're able to kind of like really let people, obviously it's a sanitized version to the kids, but
Well, even with the kids, I give them real cases that I've investigated. I mean, one of the like to talk about was an issue with some images that was going around a school, got put on social media site, the social media site shut it down. And these young ladies, that had their images put up there, all of these images now reside out of an image sharing site based out of Russia, for the entire world to see.
wow.
Even if I was to take a surgical strike and send a missile in or blow up their server farm, well, it's already touched devices all the way around the world. We will never ever get those images back.
Wow.
And when I was still working, I would get a call from these young ladies about every other month or so. Detective Dugan, hey, my images just showed up on this site. Can you help me get those pictures down? And I would do what I could. Most of the sites, when you call them up, say, hey, this is a image of a juvenile, they're more than glad to take it down.
Right.
Some of them don't want to, no, we're leaving it up there.
Wow.
So, but again, now we need to think about, hey, here's a young lady that this happened to. Here's the detective that investigated that. And that young lady is never going to get those pictures back. Right? It sort of makes it a reality for them instead of just a news story
Right.
that they heard on the news.
Right.
Here's the person that was involved in it.
Right.
So at least that's the way I think they take it.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense. And it's like, and that's just like a picture that was sent out that now their lives forever will, kind of be changed.
And again, I always tell the kids, use the grandmother rule. If you're going to, send a text to somebody or send a picture to somebody, if you wouldn't want your grandmother to see it, don't send it out.
Right.
Because, if it gets out into the real world, your grandmother may end up seeing it.
Yeah. She's gonna be pissed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we have had real investigations where, the parents have received, once the image has gone viral in the school, the parents have actually received a copy of the image.
Whoa.
Some child, doing good or being mean, I don't know which, hey, I thought you ought to know what your little girl's doing.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
And then that's it for there. I mean.
Yeah. And once you pull that trigger, set that image out, you just can't get it back.
Right. Yeah. I did that the other day. Not that. I sent a photo that I wanted to send to my girlfriend. I sent it to a group chat of my buddies. It wasn't anything bad. It was just like funny for them because it was awkward for me. It was just a selfie with me and my buddy. And I tried to delete it in our text message because I didn't want them to like make fun of me. Sure as shit. They saw it and they just started clowning me. So like once it's out there, it's out there.
And that's your adult friends.
Right.
So how much meaner do you think that, kids in the middle school are?
Right. Right.
And just me personally, that's where I saw the bigger problem was in the middle schools because these kids have just got their phones. They're still learning. They don't have, maybe the benefit of a friend that made a mistake and sending an image out and it went viral.
Right.
you get up in high school, they've gotten a little bit smarter.
Yeah.
They know, hey, I'm not going to do that anymore.
Right.
But
Right.
the middle schoolers, they haven't learned yet.
Right. No, I can totally see that. And one thing that got me, it's very frustrating actually. Um, Specifically with TikTok. Now, you could probably agree with me that it might frustrate you as an organization too, and as a person that's looking into this stuff, like that these platforms kind of allow certain, like, it's almost like sex exploitation of these young kids. Because sometimes, like, I'll be on my timeline, and most of my timeline is like Call of Duty videos and like funny videos and stuff like that. But for some reason, and I don't even have an account, I just have the app. I haven't even created an account. And I'm in marketing, so I kind of like understand how like algorithms work and how like retargeting and stuff like that is. So sometimes my timeline will just be like girls like dancing and like this and that, and I'm like they look like they're like 15 years old, and I'm like, hey, how is this on my timeline? I have never liked a photo, I've never like looked or searched or done anything. And then I'm thinking, like, how is this app even allowing this kind of, like, obviously this person's not even 18 years old, like. And then sometimes when you go to their profiles, it'll be like 15, like Indiana. And I'm like, oh my God, like these parents have no clue. They have to have no clue that their daughter is like dancing with basically no clothes on. Like it has to be frustrating to you guys.
Well, I mean, if you got a marketing background, one of the first things they taught you in marketing is sex sells.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's why, this stuff, even if, it's not part of what you've searched for, part of, what the algorithm, they're going to send it to you,
Right.
just because it sells. And you mentioned TikTok, and, there are a few apps out there that I think, should not be around.
Right.
But basically, even TikTok, I mean, it has been used by predators. I mean,
I'm sure.
TikTok, it was called Musically, and then
Yep.
I can't remember the company, Bit something other out of China, bought Musically. They already had a similar app called TikTok, so they just brought all of the Musically people into TikTok.
Right.
But the young girls use it. They might go on, make a funny video, or they might go and sing and dance, because they want to break into music or something. Well, the problem is the predators go in there, they see this, they start, you click a heart or click a like or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now the algorithm says, hey, this guy likes, 10-year-old girls singing and dancing. Let's start sending him every 10-year-old girl
Right.
singing and dancing. So it's like a smorgasbord for the predators, so they can pick and choose.
Right.
I think you can still do it. You used to be able to do what's called duets.
Yes, you can. Yeah.
Okay. So they'll find this 10-year-old girl, singing and dancing, and they'll do the duet with her. Again, hey, your voice was just so great that, I had to do this duet with you. I really think we could make a great singing team. We need to do more of this. We need maybe to consult outside of this.
Right.
So that flattery started. Maybe we can meet outside of here, so you can see how that, that predator just start the ball rolling.
Right. Yeah. No, I think that's because that's how like if I started liking stuff, I think you're right. Like they definitely know that I'm a 32-year-old man, so I may or may not like certain things. So it's random. It's very rare that it happens, but it does get thrown in my timeline sometimes, and I just like like I'm not like a predator, so I'm not like, oh yeah, this is great, but like. It's very just it just threw me off. It like disturbed me almost. It wasn't like, oh, this is cool. I was like, A, why am I seeing this? And B, holy shit. Like if I'm seeing this and I'm not even liking it, like to your point, the people that are just hardened like crazy and duetting people are now, their timelines are completely flooded with the same content.
It could be in something, even if you're researching something for your next podcast.
Right.
I'm sure if you research stuff online about this podcast, you're going to get a whole lot of advertising.
100%.
So I mean, I try to explain that to people in the presentation too, that Facebook isn't free.
No.
They take your soul.
Yeah. They have 100,000 touch points on
everybody. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, they know that all those social media platforms know more about you than you know yourself. It's scary, but that's damn, man. Yeah, the TikTok thing really got to me because Twitter, I see some crazy content on there, Instagram sometimes, but TikTok is just taking it to a whole nother level because I think it's a much younger demographic.
Exactly. And, where the children are, the predators are going to be. You know, it doesn't matter what they're doing. Whether it be the gaming system.
Right.
That's just a neat stat for you too. I mean, you're obviously a gamer.
Yeah.
72% of people on gaming systems are adults.
Whoa.
So if you send your child in to, let them play the video games, they're going in there playing with 72% of adults.
Adults. Yeah.
18
Yeah.
and older. So imagine sending your child to the playground.
Right.
It's just full of adults out there. You're not going to let your child play there.
Literally. Yeah.
You're going to stay there and keep a good eye on them.
Right. That's a good analogy. That's a good metaphor to put it that way. Like it is basically a playground. And if it has 72% adults in it, I'm damn sure not sending my child to it.
Yeah. And it's like, even if it's not a predator trying to
right.
Sexually assault them, they have to listen to the language. They have to listen to the situations.
Right. That's true.
Yeah. You can't expect an adult to, rein themselves in because there's a 10-year-old on there.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, every time I'm on a chat with like, if I'm in like an open chat, not playing with my buddies, and I hear like that like squeaky, non-hit puberty voice, I'm like, all right, well, obviously like I try not to cuss this and that. So like, but it is hard because you're like, damn, like I was just cussing up a storm with my buddies and now I got to tone it down. But not everybody's like that.
Yeah, and you're playing a game, and you're with your buddies.
Right.
You're just sitting at the bar.
Right.
Like 10-year-old walks in the bar, you shouldn't be expected to, rein in your conversation just because somebody was crazy enough to bring a 10-year-old in.
Right, right. Man, that's crazy. Well, I mean, is there anything else that you kind of wanted to touch on as far as like whether it was awareness or anything that we didn't talk about?
Well, give my pitch. Follow us on Facebook. The Maryland ICAC. Follow us on Instagram. Follow us on YouTube.
Awesome. Yeah, so I'll put all your stuff in there.
I mainly work on Facebook because it's just so easy. The following on there was already so large when I took it over.
Right.
So a lot of stuff goes on to Facebook. A lot of tips. A lot of places to go to find the answers to your questions.
Right.
Because there's just a lot of great organizations out there that really do research. How to keep your child safe online. And I'll throw it out there, a shameless plug for them. Protect Young Eyes is the best I've found.
Okay. So ProtectYoungEyes.com or .org or?
.com.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's a faith-based group based out of Michigan. They do an absolutely fantastic job. I can't say enough about them.
All right. Yeah. Well, send me those. Well, text me, whatever. And I'll put all of those in the description, all that stuff. That way people can find that stuff. Cause I think this is probably to me, the most important episode that I've done thus far. I've talked to a lot of interesting people and amazing people, but as far as like content of like importance, I think this is up there, if not the most important thing, because it's such a big topic that, like we talked about earlier, not a lot of people talk about, and obviously for right reasons, to put a child first. But at the same time, like we're not exploiting anybody right now. We're not talking about cases and stuff like that. But just the fact that we're talking about the awareness of it, I think is important.
And that's it. Just getting the awareness out, making the parents aware that, hey, this is out there, that you've given your 10-year-old girl this window to the world.
Right.
So expect there's going to be some issues.
Right.
We lock every window in the house, every door in the house, we go to bed, except for the one that we give our children.
So. Right. Oof. That's heavy, Joe. I like that. All right, good, man.
It's the truth.
It is the truth. And I really appreciate you coming on and taking the time out of your day to talk to me about this kind of stuff.
So not a problem. I've enjoyed it.
Awesome, man. Well, that's another episode of E4 Explicit Podcast, and we'll see you next time.